Supervision is one of the topics in CH 112, Nursing Leadership and Management. Supervision is a process that is known by many but understood by few. Many misconceptions and misunderstandings exist regarding the nature of clinical supervision. Traditionally, clinical supervision has been an integral part of the training process for many human professionals. Yet, while supervision was an integral part of professional training and improvement of service delivery, few supervisors and supervisees fully understood the process. Many misconceptions have been perpetuated by individuals who have been unprepared for acting as a supervisor and have received little or no formal training in supervision. That's according to Campbell. There are many misconceptions or myths regarding clinical supervision. The first is, and probably the biggest myth about supervision, is the illusion that just because he is a veteran or a counselor, a veteran therapist, or just because he is an experienced clinician, he will automatically make a good supervisor. In many situations, individuals who were very good clinicians turn out to be very poor supervisors. The skill set required for his job is significantly different. Knowledge and skills in service provisions are required for both. But the skills, the abilities, the interests, and temperament required to be a supervisor are very, very different. The skills that are required for a therapist and the skill set for clinical supervisors share some commonality, but the tasks that are accomplished and the desired outcomes are different. Just because he is a good counselor does not mean that you have the skills to be a good supervisor. For misconception number 2, which is involving viewing clinical supervision strictly as a review of cases. Now, reviewing of cases and monitoring for compliance on the part of the worker is a very limited concept of supervision. It ignores one of the key components of what good clinical supervision is all about, specifically professional judgment. Supervision also includes a number of core dimensions, including the growth of the individual, the growth of the profession, safeguarding the profession, and ensuring the quality of services for clients. Good supervision goes well beyond simply reviewing the cases and co-signing forms and reports. On myth number 3, some individuals have mistakenly viewed supervision as an activity for beginners or for professionals of questionable skills. Here is an example. I have been in this field for 20 years and I don't need to be supervised anymore. I am quite capable of functioning without supervision. Supervision in some situations has been mistakenly viewed as punitive, a misconception that may be inadvertently promulgated by licensing board actions. Misconception number 4. In here, Typically, whenever individuals are brought up for disciplinary action by stating licensing boards, a frequent part of the resolution of their case may require the individual to be under supervision for a specified period of time. If a professional displays a lapse in judgment or behaves improperly, the licensing board is very likely to require that professional to function under the watchful eye of a supervisor who reports to the board. In these situations, supervision has been the equivalent of a statement of fact that a professional was not competent or was not effective and required additional foresight. This has made supervision feel punitive, rather than appropriately understanding that the nature of supervision is much broader. Supervision is desirable at all experience level to ensure service quality. Another misconception on myth number 5, this is in regard to revolving around issues of diversity and culture. Just because I am trained and a veteran professional doesn't mean that I don't have to be concerned about how diversity issues impact my supervision. A faulty assumption is that simply because we are both professionals, we ought to be able to deal with diversity issues and cultural differences. As a good supervisor, you have to be concerned about diversity and culture and their impact on the supervisory interaction. It is a fundamentally different dynamic. As a white male, when I'm supervising another white male, as compared to when I'm supervising an Asian female. Unacknowledged acculturation factors makes the dynamics of its supervision unaware and attempts to address the diversity issues in supervision. In myth number 6, some supervisors have had the misconception that the best way to supervise is to control, is to dictate, and is to micromanage to prevent the possibility of a screw-up or a harm to a client. This misconception has resulted in an attitude of don't coddle supervisees. This approach was simply wait for them to screw up and then make them understand how incompetent they are so they won't make the same mistake again. Unfortunately for some supervisors, felt like they had to present themselves as the guru and the be-all and end-all in any supervisory situation. This posture or attitude may not have served their supervisees well because the supervisor was faking it instead of really being genuine about the process of supervision. Supervision is an interactive process between two professionals or a professional in training that can only reach its true potential when both parties participate openly and fully. On myth number 7, one of these common misconceptions of supervision that is still fairly prevalent was viewing supervision as a therapy. During the 70s and the 80s, supervision was viewed and practiced in a very similar term as psychotherapy. The supervisor's role was to therapize the supervisee to the point that one could safely assume that the supervisee would not be imposing their issues on the clients. In many instances, the supervision looked and felt a great deal like self-exploration, self-development, or a therapy session. The emphasis was on the supervisor's development and working through their personal issues. Very little emphasis was placed on skills development, professional development, or providing high-quality services to the client. A gradual awareness emerged that the emphasis of supervision should be about learning skills to provide a high-quality service to the clients, not purging supervisees of their personal demons. The pendulum has now swung to the other side, to the point that everyone is generally clear that supervision should not be a therapy. Nevertheless, in order to protect clients, we cannot ignore the emotional issues or psychopathology of the supervisee. But it may be more appropriate to refer the supervisee out to someone else for therapeutic services. In myth number 8, the supervisor presents herself as the expert who knows everything. The best supervisor may be those who can acknowledge that, and I quote, "I really am not competent in that area, but I'll find out, or perhaps we both need to do some reading on that issue." Unfortunately, some supervisors felt like they had to present themselves as the guru and the be-all and end-all in any supervisory situations. This posture or attitude may not have served their supervisors well, because the supervisor was faking it instead of really being genuine about the process of supervision. Supervision is an interactive process between two professionals that can only reach its true potential when both parties participate openly and fully. Myth number 9, because supervisors are ethically responsible for the actions of their supervisees, the supervisor's directions should not be questioned. And for the last myth, on myth number 10, the pendulum has swung so far that some people believe that as supervisor, I have to park my clinical skills at the door and simply become an automaton case reviewer. Active listening, reframing, partializing, and decatastrophizing are good skills in terms of simple human interaction and supervision, as well as psychotherapy. Employing and utilizing those therapeutic skills in a therapy situation is a very different than those purpose that you would use those skills for in supervision. Nevertheless, it is not inappropriate to utilize those basic skills as a part of the supervision process.